let me explain what is MSBI stands for, and basically what MSBI have, or it consolidates modules of. So when we say MSBI, it's a business intelligence tool, basically providing, it is majorly used to provide intelligence to the business. So when I say intelligence to the business, let's say business have difficulty in understanding or maintaining their information. Here is where BI tool comes in and helps business to get that accurate understanding. Doing the data analysis part is very easy in MSBI. So there are different tools, like one is ETL tool, one is reporting tool, one is analysis tool. Okay, so these three tools all together form Microsoft Business Intelligence. That means under a single umbrella, you are getting three different, tools. And these tools in MSBI are known as SSIS, SSRS, and SSAS. Right. So when we say ETL, what exactly ETL means and how this ETL is used in our business, we will see those kind of examples now. Before going ahead and get started with that, let me also tell you, this is not only the part we are going to cover, but we are also going to cover SQL Server Development, which is very important in order to get an interview crack or survive in any IT company for Microsoft Business Intelligence. You have to have SQL Server Development with you. If say you do not understand, or if say you do not know what is SQL Server, or you do not show SQL Server experience, I don't think they are also going to consider any resume without SQL Server Development, because SQL Server Development is a back-end process for MSBI. With that said, most of the companies who uses MSBI have their data warehouse developed on SQL Server, and there is a strong reason behind it. The reason being is SQL Server, when we buy or a company buys SQL Server full stack license, they're also going to get the MSBI features additionally. So that means it is basically coming from SQL Server itself. Right guys, so that's another advantage why companies have this Microsoft Business Intelligence highly implemented, because of its low cost. So basically there are a lot of other tools in the market, like for ETL, if you're talking for ETL, SSIS versus if you compare, there is Informatica, Ab Initio, Data Stage, BizTalk, a lot of other ETL tools are there. But what is the advantage of we going with SSIS? The advantage is, first thing is very highly implemented because of its product and because of its cost, very less cost, it is highly implemented. Another thing is with MSBI, see, when we say Informatica or when we say Data Stage or when we say Ab Initio, for people who don't know what are these tools, these are ETL tools, other companies' ETL tools. You would see these ETL tools also in the market, but the drawback is they don't have reporting service attached to it. They don't have database attached to it, right? So if a company, let's say, trying to implement ETL, they would think of database first. What should be the database? If they are taking Informatica as their ETL, they have to separately charge an expenses for their own database as well. So This is a drawback what they have. And then let's say after doing the whole ETL on database, they also want to generate a report. So they will go with some other Cognos or Tableau or ClickView, right? So there are other tools in the market which helps them to develop the reports. So they have to buy each and everything separately, which is again a cost increasing factor. So that is why you see even in DICE or Career Builder or Monster Naukri, you go and just type SSIS, you will see a lot of openings for SSIS and SQL Development. And another thing, guys, when I say MSBI, you see all of this in place, right? So do not get panicked that do I need to have all of this in my alley or in my resume when I go for an interview or when I am actually looking for a job. So it is not like that. What it is actually when companies would look for a SSIS developer or a SSRS developer or a SSAS developer, right? So mixing of both, maybe SSIS and SSRS. There are very few companies who will look for all of these skills. Maybe out of 110% of companies who will look for all of these skills, but 90% of the companies will just look for SSIS. And equally, maybe I could say 80% would look for reporting, and I would say for just solo SSIS, SSAS work, they would look for 30%. So with that said, I would not recommend any one of my students to go for SSAS development, because SSAS is kind of very high level, and in order to go ahead and start with SSAS, you need to have very good understanding on database. So that is why I don't encourage students who really don't have experience in any of the data. Now coming to our training patterns, guys, how we are going to work on this SQL Server part. So whenever we are starting the classes, you would see me starting from the basics of SQL Server, like what are the basics of SQL Server? What is an object? What is a table? What is a constraint? What are keys? What are operators? What are aggregation? So basic level of, because of the reason our students, my students would not have a good understanding on SQL Server, and that is the reason why we have to go and start with the basic concepts. So we are starting from the basic module, and then we would also see advanced level of queries in SQL Server. So what do I mean by advanced? Advanced in the sense, we are going to look how typically stored procedure is used, what are output parameters in stored procedures, what are input parameters, how are triggers differentiated, what are different type of functions, and different type of string functions, which are really important, and which are, I would say, which is very important, and different type of case statements, if conditions, because these are normally used while you are working on validation of data, most of the case. So those kind of advanced concepts would also be covered, and then interview questions will also be discussed in between the class. This module is carried out with each of the module of MSBI. Apart from this, our SSIS will have a real-time project. Now, this real-time project is going to help any developer to work in any MNC. Basically, this project is going to hold lots of dynamic behavior into it, wherein we can basically, you go into any company, you would see similar kind of framework what we would be seeing in this SSIS package. Now with that, we will also have a real-time error handling framework. And this framework you would see most of the companies have implemented, or you might see a similar framework what you see in our training pattern. And yes, the real-time project is always very, very helpful in order to survive. When I say survive, I mean that you would be able to handle any kind of complex situations, because you would see many complex situations in the project, wherein this is not a simple integration work, it is also capturing the images into our database. So that is kind of interesting, and we would look into it, right? And then reporting, yes, always basics plus advanced plus interview questions and analysis is also carried on. Now let me just quickly give an understanding of what an ETL is. So guys, let's say there is a company in US, let's say take an example of US, Heritage, right? It's a retail firm. So overall in US, they are highly implemented, let's say for about 200 branches overall in US. Now, how do they manage their database, or how do they manage their transactions? So when I say transactions, so how do they know how much of product sale have happened today or yesterday, or it's going to happen tomorrow? Prediction of data. So how do they know? When they manage their transaction, how are they going to manage? See, if they just place it in an Excel file and keep it as it is it not very difficult for understanding the data or getting the information of data for last 5 years for specific products? If I say, and if I add few more constants, it's going to be a very, very, very complex job for any developer to give or represent the data to the business. So what I mean is, let's say I as the business owner, let's say retail company is mine, and I wanted to know the information of specific products in specific states for 5 years. What happened in these decades? Where is my product sales? How is it? What is the trend of my product? So for that, first we have to understand the data. Now if data is scattered in different Excel files in 200 states, right? So you have to get those 200 files and you have to check for those years and those products in those states. So it's going to be a very difficult part. So that is the reason we use SQL Server, because this SQL Server with just one simple query will give the business expectation. So for that, what are we going to do is, let's say we have, let me quickly open the MS Paint in order to explain you clearly. Let's say we have Heritage Excel files here. Okay guys. Alright. Now we have, let's say, 200 Excel files available in our location. Now what are we going to say to the business, or to the businesses? Boss, you just keep it with you, and end of the day, this is the project what was given to Heritage actually, which I'm explaining you. So what we did is we have said them, okay, after, or whenever you close your business, before ending or before logging off, you just have to send all of your Excel sheets into one FTP server. FTP is a file transfer protocol, is a common server which can be shared, or a remote server which can be given access on, read, write, or read, whatever it is. So I have given an access is the common server where files are going to get landed from their specific states. So altogether 200. One is in Atlanta, one is in Alaska, one is in Alabama, one is in California, one is in Texas. So different states, different Excels are coming and getting loaded into our FTP. So this process might take about 10 to 20 minutes or maybe 30 minutes or maybe 2 hours long mostly if network is busy, right? So once we get it loaded, what we did it, we have moved all of these files to our SQL Server database. The purpose of moving is just we saw that with one simple select statement, we are going to get whatever the business expectations is. So with this, migrating the process from file systems to our SQL Server is called data, or file migration is called the ETL process. It's called extraction of files, transformation of files. In between, let's say there are some transformations which needs to be taken care. For an example, I am migrating the whole information, whole Excel sheet into one place. Now, before loading it into my destination, I want to check whether I have any null rows in those Excel. If yes, I have to remove. Therein where transformation. This is a simple example I can give for now to make you explain. But we will see a lot of complex example when we go in deep. So transformation is basically what we'll do is we'll rectify these kind of issues. And loading in the sense you are loading into SQL. So don't think that it is only SQL. It can be any database in case of required. Okay. But most of the cases, since it is SQL, that is why I'm telling SQL. Now once it is in SQL, it is not again done. That business is able to understand. How do you give this data? Let's say you have selected this record, this table or this query, and you got the accurate result what business is expecting. How do you give this result to the business? We give it on top of this SQL Server. We are going to configure the reporting services, which is SSRS. Now this SSRS is going to help the business understand the data, whether the trend is low, whether the trend is moderate, whether the trend is high in a reports format. Not only this, we can also see charts, we can also see pie diagrams, we can also, a lot of things are there which we can see in reporting services. So these are actually published on the reporting server and also are scheduled to run with the latest records of report in business email or a shared drive what business is looking for. So these kind of things are called subscriptions, snapshotting we will see in coming sessions. But for now understand this is what reporting services is used. So if any one of us is wondering then where SSAS comes in, SSAS comes in, let's say there are trillions of records in SQL Server which is taking time to process the information into SSRS. Let's say it's taking 2 hours of time. So in those situations it is really hard waiting for 2 hours just to get the information. That is why very less companies are there which will rather go with SSAS, but most of the companies will go with SQL itself. So what they will do is they will push this SQL into the SSAS server, SQL data into SSAS server. Now when they are pushing it to SSAS server, they have to understand that tables, here it is table, it is 2-dimensional, rows and columns, but this is the storage mode of SQL Server. The storage mode of SSAS is not the same as your table. It is the cube. It is the cube storage. So what do you mean by cube? It's the multi-dimensional storage mode. Now how are we going to store? Therein where our SSAS platform will come in. This is the server, guys. This is not the platform. This is the platform. This is the tool. This is the tool. Here is the tool, SSAS tool, which is actually used to develop the cubes. And how we develop, what we develop, where we develop, why we develop, how the performance is increased, everything we'll see in our next class in great details, not now. So once it is developed, we are going to push it into our server. And since the performance is now increased, instead of going with SQL, we now go with SSAS into SSRS and generate the reports, which will rather may take about only 30 minutes or only 20 minutes of time. So the time compared to SQL versus SSAS is highly increased. And this is asked only 30%, guys, do not worry. Most of the part, if you focus on ETL and RS, is SQL as well, is, I would say, more than sufficient. So this is all about our our modules in Microsoft Business Intelligence. Let us see what is the course. And I have not introduced myself, sorry about that. So I have worked in many companies in US, basically especially the companies in US, downtown Atlanta. For like, let's Trust Bank is there, Home Depot is there, Bridge to Solutions in Alpharetta is there. So helping them for the business, I have supported with this client. And if you come down, there is a course content. The course content is, this is for SQL, guys. So whatever is there, we are going to cover. We are not going to miss any of the topic, because even we are not a SQL developer, Microsoft Business Intelligence or any BI developer needs to have that SQL commands, that SQL advanced concepts as well. So everything and anything which comes under SQL, which is highly used and which are not used also, which are moderately also used, are going to cover in SQL, right? And then this is SSIS. Here is the module. What are we going to cover from the scratch? We'll understand and we'll go one by one. And here is the real-time project, image and capture with the banking domain, and the work framework, error handling framework with it. When we come down, we see reporting services, and in reporting services again we have different type of subscription is what do you say, cascading report, drill through, drill down report, frequently asked in interviews or frequently used in jobs. Different type of reports we will see. And then SSAS. So this is what is our training pattern is.